Hey everyone, welcome back to Steve's View. For most of the past year, American politics has been dominated by one question: what happens next in the Middle East? But as important as the war with Iran may be, another battle is already underway, much closer to home. It is a battle that could reshape Washington long before the next presidential election. And, unlike the fighting overseas, this one will be decided by voters, campaign cash, court rulings, and political strategy. The 2026 midterm elections are now less than 5 months away, and both parties know exactly what's at stake. For Republicans, this election will determine whether President Donald Trump can continue governing with a friendly Congress or whether his second term becomes trapped in legislative gridlock. For Democrats, it may be their best opportunity to stop Trump's agenda before the 2028 presidential race even begins. And while the headlines remain focused on foreign policy, the political war for Congress has already started. Historically, Republicans should be worried. American political history is filled with examples of presidents suffering major losses during midterm elections. Voters often use midterms to send a message to the party in power. It happened to Barack Obama in 2010. It happened to Donald Trump in 2018. It happened to Joe Biden in 2022. The pattern is so common that political analysts have practically turned it into a law of American politics. The reason is simple. When a party controls the White House, it becomes responsible for everything that goes wrong. Voters blame the administration for inflation, economic uncertainty, rising costs, international crises, and political frustration. Meanwhile, the opposition party has the luxury of criticizing without governing. That historical trend alone would make 2026 difficult for Republicans. But Republicans face another challenge as well: the economy. For much of the 2024 election cycle, Trump successfully focused public attention on inflation, energy prices, and the rising cost of living under the Biden administration. Those issues helped Republicans regain power. Now, however, Republicans face the uncomfortable reality that they are the governing party. If voters are unhappy about prices in 2026, they will not be blaming Joe Biden anymore. They will be blaming Donald Trump. Recent economic polling suggests this may already be becoming a problem. Many Americans continue to report frustration over housing costs, grocery prices, and overall affordability. The war with Iran has added new uncertainty to energy markets. Oil prices remain elevated. Businesses remain cautious. Consumers remain nervous. And regardless of what economists say about growth statistics, most voters judge the economy based on a very simple question: does my life feel more affordable than it did before? That question matters far more than GDP reports. A voter paying more for gasoline every week doesn't care about abstract economic indicators. A family struggling with grocery bills doesn't care about quarterly growth projections. Politics often comes down to personal experience. Republicans understand this danger. That is why many Republican strategists are trying to make the 2026 election about something other than current economic frustrations. Instead of asking voters to focus on today's challenges, they want voters to remember yesterday's. Expect Republican campaigns to spend the next several months reminding Americans about inflation during the Biden years, the border crisis, rising crime concerns, and the broader failures they associate with democratic governance. The goal is straightforward. Republicans do not want the election to become a referendum on Trump's second term. They want it to become a comparison between Trump and the Democratic alternative. That strategy makes political sense. After all, if voters are choosing between two imperfect options, Republicans believe they can still win by convincing voters that Democrats would be worse. At the same time, Democrats see a major opportunity. They understand that voters are often less motivated by promises than by disappointment. The Democratic strategy is therefore relatively simple. Connect every economic frustration to Republican leadership. Connect every increase in energy prices to Republican decisions. Connect every foreign policy setback to Trump's administration. And then ask voters whether they are better off than they were 2 years ago. If Democrats can successfully frame the election around affordability and economic anxiety, Republicans could face serious trouble. But perhaps the most fascinating part of this election isn't the economy. It's the map. Most Americans pay little attention to congressional district maps. Yet those maps may determine who controls the House of Representatives more than any television commercial or campaign speech. The battle over redistricting has become one of the most important and least understood aspects of modern American politics. Recent court decisions have created new opportunities for both parties to redraw congressional districts. Republicans are particularly optimistic about developments in several states where legal challenges and court rulings may allow maps to be adjusted before the election. Supporters of the Republican strategy argue that Democrats spent years benefiting from favorable district lines in blue states and are now simply facing similar tactics from the other side. Democrats, meanwhile, argue that Republicans are attempting to manipulate the system to maintain power despite changing voter preferences. The reality is that both parties engage in aggressive redistricting whenever they have the opportunity. Neither side possesses clean hands in this fight. The political battlefield increasingly resembles an arms race. If Republicans redraw districts in one state, Democrats look for opportunities in another. If one side gains 3 seats through mapping, the other side searches for a way to gain 3 seats somewhere else. The result is a continuous struggle that often occurs far from public attention, but can dramatically influence election outcomes. This is one reason why predictions about 2026 remain so difficult. Many analysts focus on national polling, but congressional elections are not decided nationally. They are decided district by district, state by state, map by map, court case by court case. And that complexity creates enormous uncertainty. Another major factor shaping the election is money. Republican organizations aligned with Trump have reportedly accumulated enormous financial resources for the midterm battle. The numbers are impressive. Campaign professionals understand that money matters. Money funds advertising. Money funds voter outreach. Money funds data operations. Money funds legal challenges. Money funds turnout efforts. In modern politics, money is oxygen. However, money is not magic. Recent elections have demonstrated that spending more does not automatically guarantee victory. There comes a point where additional campaign spending produces diminishing returns. A voter who has already seen 100 political advertisements is unlikely to change opinions after seeing the 101st. This is especially true in today's highly polarized environment. Many Americans have already chosen sides. The challenge is no longer persuasion. The challenge is turnout. Who can motivate supporters to actually vote? Who can generate enthusiasm? Who can create urgency? Those questions matter far more than simply purchasing additional television advertisements. And that brings us to perhaps the biggest problem facing both parties. Neither party is particularly popular. This may be the most important political fact of 2026. Republicans point to Democratic weaknesses. Democrats point to Republican weaknesses. But public frustration extends beyond either party. Many voters are tired of Washington itself. Many voters are tired of endless political warfare. Many voters are tired of hearing that every election is the most important election in history. Polling consistently shows widespread dissatisfaction with both major parties. That creates opportunities for outsiders, independent candidates, and populist movements. It also creates risks. When voters lose confidence in institutions, elections become more volatile and less predictable. Small shifts in turnout can suddenly have enormous consequences. A few thousand votes in the right district can change control of Congress. While much attention focuses on the House of Representatives, the Senate may actually present the more interesting story. Democrats face a difficult structural challenge. America's political geography increasingly favors Republicans in Senate elections. Urban areas continue moving toward Democrats. Rural areas continue moving toward Republicans. Because every state receives 2 senators regardless of population, Republicans often benefit from this geographic distribution. Democrats can win the national popular vote and still struggle to secure Senate majorities. That reality means Democrats must compete aggressively in states that Trump either won or remains highly competitive in. States such as Iowa, North Carolina, Ohio, and Texas suddenly become critical battlegrounds. Winning those races will not be easy. Many of those states have been moving toward Republicans for years. Yet Democrats see opportunities. Why? Because voters are complicated. A voter may support Trump for president while supporting a Democratic senator. A voter may dislike one party nationally while preferring a local candidate. Political identities are becoming stronger, but ticket splitting has not disappeared entirely. This is why Senate races often develop their own unique dynamics. Candidate quality still matters. Local issues still matter. Campaign execution still matters. The final months before Election Day could therefore produce surprises in multiple states. And then there is the question hanging over everything: Iran. No issue may influence the election more than the future of the conflict. If energy prices stabilize, if negotiations advance, and if the broader economy remains relatively healthy, Republicans may be able to avoid the traditional midterm backlash. But if the conflict escalates, if oil prices surge, or if Americans begin viewing the war as an endless commitment with no clear victory, political consequences could become severe. History shows that foreign wars often become domestic political issues. Voters may support military action initially, but public patience has limits, especially when economic costs become visible, especially when families feel financial pressure at home. That does not mean the war alone will determine the election. It does mean the war could influence nearly every other issue voters care about: energy, inflation, consumer confidence, economic growth. All of these factors are connected. So where does this leave the 2026 midterms? At the moment, neither party possesses a clear advantage. Republicans have incumbency, money, and favorable Senate geography. Democrats have historical trends, economic frustrations, and the possibility of benefiting from voter fatigue with the governing party. Both sides have paths to victory. Both sides have reasons for concern. If current conditions remain unchanged, a divided government may ultimately be the most likely outcome. Democrats could potentially regain the House of Representatives while Republicans hold the Senate. Such a result would immediately transform the final years of Trump's second term. Legislation would become more difficult. Investigations would intensify. Political conflict would increase. And attention would quickly shift toward the 2028 presidential race. But one lesson from modern American politics should remain clear: predictions are dangerous. Political experts confidently predicted outcomes in 2016 and were shocked. They made predictions in 2020 and encountered surprises. They made predictions in 2024 and encountered more surprises. American politics has entered an era where voter behavior is increasingly fluid, institutions face growing skepticism, and major events can reshape elections overnight. That is why the 2026 midterms matter so much. They are not merely a contest for congressional seats. They are a referendum on Trump's governing strategy. They are a test of whether Democrats can rebuild public trust. They are a measure of how Americans view the economy, foreign policy, and the direction of the country. Most importantly, they may determine who enters the 2028 presidential race with momentum and who enters it wounded. The battle has already begun. The advertisements are coming. The lawsuits are coming. The fundraising is already underway. The redistricting fights are intensifying. And somewhere beyond all the headlines about wars, diplomacy, and international crises, a different struggle is quietly unfolding. A struggle over who will write the next chapter of American politics. The answer will begin to emerge this November. Thanks for watching.